Hello and welcome. I hope you're doing well. Today we're looking at the beginning of Matthew chapter 14 and two famous stories about the death of John the Baptist and about the feeding of the 5,000. So in the first part, the death of John the Baptist, Herod is the king and John has said some things about him and his relationships he didn't like. So he has John arrested and thrown into prison, but he doesn't want to kill him because the people think he's a prophet. And so he just keeps him in prison. Then he's throwing a big party and his daughter-in-law is dancing and he promises her a gift up to half the kingdom. And she says, in consultation with her mother, I want the head of John the Baptist. Now he's very sad about this, but because of all those there, he decides to go ahead with it and kills John. And so what we see here is a man who is purely occupied with himself. So he arrests John purely because of what he's said about him. Nothing he's done, just his bad-mouthing him. So he arrests him. He's thrown this fancy party. First of all, he doesn't want to do any more to him because he fears people and what they're going to do to him. And then when he makes this promise to his daughter-in-law, then he wants to go through with it because he fears the guests, what they're going to think of him. So all along, it's a person who thinks of himself, thinks, what are people going to do to me? What are people going to think of me? Purely about me. I want you to hold that in contrast to the next passage where we see Jesus and the feeding of the 5,000. So it says in verse 13 that when Jesus heard it about the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew from there to a boat into a desolate place by himself. So obviously Jesus was grieving. He just lost his cousin through death. And so he was working through that. He was also probably thinking through a lot of things in his mind. The death of John the Baptist signifies, in a sense, a new era in Jesus' own ministry in preparation for his own death to come as well. So there was a lot going through Jesus' mind, which is why he wanted to get away. But then it says the crowds heard that he was there and they followed him. And then it says in verse 14, when he went ashore, he saw a great crowd and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. So Jesus could have said, look, it's been a tough week, a tough day. I need some space. I need some time. I need to work through some things. I need to, think about what's going on for me. But he didn't. It says he has compassion on them and he healed the sick. And this shows that Jesus, the heart of Jesus in comparison to Herod. Jesus wasn't thinking about himself. He wasn't like, guys, I need a day off. Because love doesn't have a day off. And he loved the people that much. And he had compassion on them. And too often we can park these things because we want some me time. It's about me. But actually Jesus continued just loving. I think it's interesting then that when the evening comes and his disciples say to him, this is a desolate place and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves. So again, there's that kind of part where Jesus could have said, great, I've done my bit. I've signed off. I'm knackered. Let's get rid of them. We can have a rest. But he didn't. He didn't do that. He wanted to still continue loving them. And equally, we can see this kind of, again, it's a tinge of selfishness of it's late. We don't have what they need. Let's send them away. The disciples were thinking of themselves, whereas Jesus was thinking of them. And so Jesus says to them, they need not go away. You give them something to eat. And there's different things that made me think about this. Now, one is Jesus is constantly teaching his disciples. There's always teaching opportunities. And so Jesus is showing them about the miracles, about God's provision and things like that. I do also wonder if it's almost a prelude as well to the fact that Jesus is going to go. And one day the disciples are going to have to step up and take responsibility. Because he actually says, you give them something to eat. So it's not Jesus doing it this time. It's saying, you're going to have to do it. Because Jesus maybe was tired, maybe didn't have much to give. But this was, again, a prime opportunity to say, I'm not always going to be here. I'm not always going to be able to do this. You need to step up as well. And he's given them the authority to move in this. And so he does that. And again, it's just another great example of Jesus' love and compassion for the people. And he gives them the baskets and God is faithful. Sorry, he gives them the food and God is faithful and is the provider. And so through these, we just see the contrast of Jesus's attitude. And I don't know if we can follow that. You know, I've never lost somebody in terms of that close to me. And the example of Jesus is a hard one. But I think the example would say, even when you're going through difficulty, keep on loving, keep on pursuing. Actually, don't think of yourself, because that's our natural tendency, but keep on loving others. And actually, I believe that's where healing and blessing will come to us as well.